I have watched this hallway longer than anyone alive. My world is a narrow strip of faded wallpaper, the creak of floorboards, and the shifting light that dances across my glass. I am the old family portrait, four faces frozen in a moment that no one remembers fondly anymore. My frame is chipped, my colors dulled, but I have seen everything. I have seen the laughter, the slammed doors, the whispered apologies, and the secrets that stick to the walls like dust. I remember the day they hung me here. The father, Mark, was younger then, his hair still dark, his eyes bright with the kind of hope that makes you want to believe in forever. He hammered my nail in with a trembling hand, while his wife, Linda, fussed over the angle. Their son, Tyler, was just tall enough to tug at his mother's sleeve, and the baby, little Maisie, was a bundle of pink and giggles, her eyes wide and curious, already searching for something she couldn't name. Decades passed in the blink of an eye. I watched birthdays, Christmas mornings, and the slow, silent drift that happens to families when no one is looking. I saw Mark's hair turn gray, Linda's smile grow thin, Tyler's shoulders hunch under invisible weights. And Maisie? Oh, Maisie. She grew up with a storm in her chest, always glancing at me as if I might blink and tell her a secret. Then, one morning the house changed. The air turned heavy, and the silence was so thick it pressed against my glass. Mark was gone. The hallway filled with the scent of lilies and the hush of people who didn't know what to say. I watched Linda move like a ghost, her eyes red and raw, her hands trembling as she passed me by. Tyler stopped coming home. Maisie, now barely 7, would stand in front of me for hours, her small fingers tracing the outline of her father's face in the photograph. Sometimes she whispered things, fragments of dreams, questions no one else would answer, secrets she was too young to carry. It was Maisie who first noticed the notes. The first one was a scrap of paper, yellowed and brittle, wedged behind my frame. Linda found it while dusting, her fingers brushing the edge. She unfolded it with a frown, her eyes scanning the words. I couldn't read the note, but I felt the way her breath caught, the way her shoulders stiffened. After that, she started searching behind me more often, as if I were hiding a whole library of confessions. The notes kept coming. Some were angry, some sad, some written in a hand that trembled with regret. Each one was a tiny crack in the family's fragile peace. Linda grew suspicious, her voice sharp and brittle. Tyler returned, his eyes darting, his words clipped. Maisie watched them both, her gaze too old for her years. The house filled with tension, a storm gathering in every corner. And I, helpless, silent, could only watch as the family I had known unraveled, thread by thread. One night, thunder rattled the windows, rain lashed the glass, and the hallway flickered with the blue-white light of lightning. The family gathered in front of me, drawn together by some invisible force. Voices rose, accusations flew, and the truth, raw and jagged, tore its way into the open. Mark's death, they learned, was not just a cruel twist of fate. It was the final act in a tragedy years in the making, a heart broken by betrayal and secrets too heavy to bear. As the storm raged outside, the family's own storm broke within these walls. Old wounds bled fresh, and for a moment I thought the house itself might split apart. But then, in the quiet after the storm, something shifted. The truth, ugly as it was, had been set free. The family stood together, battered but breathing, and I, still hanging, still watching, felt a strange sense of peace settle over the hallway. They took me down the next morning, replacing me with a new photograph, a new beginning. But I remain, tucked away in the attic, my frame still holding the echoes of laughter, the weight of secrets, and the hope that even the oldest wounds can heal, given enough light. Sometimes I wonder if I'm more memory than object. Even now, tucked away in the attic, I can feel the pulse of the house below me. The footsteps, the muffled voices, the way the air changes when someone is about to cry. I miss the hallway, the way sunlight would catch the dust and make it look like the world was full of tiny golden ghosts. Up here, it's mostly shadows and the slow, patient work of spiders. But I still listen. I still remember. Maisie visits me sometimes. She's older now, but her eyes are the same. Wide, searching, always hungry for answers. She sits on the old trunk across from me, knees pulled to her chest, and talks to the darkness as if it might talk back. "I know you saw everything," she whispers, her voice trembling with the weight of things she can't say to anyone else. "I wish you could tell me what really happened. If only I could. If only I had a voice. I'd tell her about the night Mark found the letter. How he stood in front of me, hands shaking, reading words that shattered him from the inside out. I'd tell her about Linda's sleepless nights, the way she'd pace the hallway, pausing in front of me as if she could feel his eyes watching her from the photograph. I'd tell her about Tyler, who started hiding things, notes, keys, even his own grief, because he didn't know how to let anyone see him break. But I am only a portrait, and my silence is all I have to offer. So I watch, and I remember. And I hope that somehow the truth will find its way to the surface. It almost did, that stormy night. The air was electric. Every shadow stretched long and sharp. Linda had found another note, this one different, written in a child's scrawl, but with words that cut deeper than any adult's could. She called Tyler and Maisie into the hallway, her voice tight and thin. The three of them stood in front of me, the storm outside echoing the chaos inside. "Who wrote this?" Linda demanded, waving the note like a flag of surrender. Tyler's jaw clenched, his eyes darting to Maisie, who shrank back, her hands twisting in her shirt. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Tyler stepped forward, his voice barely more than a whisper. "It was me," he said. "All of them. I wrote them." The confession hung in the air, heavy and strange. Linda's face crumpled, her anger dissolving into something softer, sadder. Maisie looked at her brother as if seeing him for the first time. Tyler's hands shook as he explained how he'd found the old letter, how he'd watched their mother unravel, how he'd tried to force the truth into the open because he couldn't stand the silence anymore. Linda wept then, the kind of tears that come from a place so deep you forget you ever had words. She told them about the affair, about the guilt that had eaten her alive for years, about the night Mark found out, and how she'd watched him break, powerless to stop it. The storm outside faded, but the storm inside raged on, tearing down the last of the walls they'd built around themselves. I watched it all, my glass fogged with the breath of secrets finally spoken. For the first time in years, the house felt lighter, as if the truth had opened a window and let the air in. They stood together, not whole, but honest, and in that honesty, I saw the first flicker of hope. The next morning, they took me down. Linda's hands were gentle, her touch lingering on the frame, as if to say goodbye. They replaced me with a new photograph, smiling faces, arms around each other, a promise to try again. I was carried to the attic, laid to rest among boxes of forgotten things. But I am not forgotten. I am the keepers of their story, the silent witness to their pain and their healing. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and the world is still, I imagine I can hear laughter drifting up through the floorboards. It's not the same as it was, but it's real. And that, I think, is enough. Sometimes, late at night, I feel the house breathing. The wind rattles the attic window, and the floorboards below creak with the weight of old memories. I lie here, wrapped in a blanket of dust, but I am not lonely. I am filled with echoes, laughter, arguments, the soft hush of secrets. I am more than a picture. I am a vessel for everything this family could not say out loud. Maisie still visits, though less often now. She's taller, her hair longer, her eyes carrying the quiet wisdom of someone who's seen too much too young. She sits cross-legged in front of me, tracing the outline of my frame with her fingertip. "I miss him," she says sometimes, her voice barely more than a breath. "I wish things could go back." I want to tell her that nothing ever really goes back. But sometimes, moving forward is its own kind of miracle. One evening, as the sun sets and the attic glows gold, Linda comes up the stairs. She's holding the new family portrait, the one with the tentative smiles and arms linked tight. She sets it beside me, and for a moment, she just stands there, looking at both of us. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice thick with tears she doesn't let fall, "for holding us together, even when we were falling apart." I feel something shift inside me, a loosening, a letting go. I realize I am not just a witness to their pain, but also to their healing. The truth, once a poison, has become a kind of medicine. The family is not what it was, but it is real, and it is theirs. Tyler visits more often now, his laughter echoing up the stairs. Maisie sings to herself as she does her homework. Linda opens the windows, lets the light in, and sometimes, just sometimes, she smiles at the new photograph, as if she believes in hope again. I am content here, among the forgotten treasures and the dust motes that dance in the sun. I have seen the worst and the best of them. I have held their secrets, their grief, and now, their forgiveness. I know that even when the world changes, even when the faces in the hallway are replaced, the heart of a family is not a single moment, but 1,000 small choices to stay, to speak, to forgive. And so I rest, not as a relic, but as a memory, proof that even the most silent witness can carry the weight of love, and that sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, is the only thing that can set us free.